live. Excellent.
Hello, hello.
Hello, everybody in the chat. Let's see. Who do we got? Hello, Spin. And hello, Drew. Drew Chaboo. Hello, everybody. And welcome.
Yes.
Yeah, we're back. So
we're back.
We're back.
Right.
We're back.
We're back to normal after last week's
epic stream, by the way, because even after you left, I kept going. It was a 2 hour.
Oh, I noticed. Yeah,
I saw 2:23. Man, it was the most epic stream I think I've ever done. So,
okay.
I got emotional, man. I told you, Bobby. I said if we go there, I'll get emotional, but let's not go there again. So,
hey, we were authentic.
I try. So, yeah. Anyway, we are back, and
we have good topics to discuss today.
Yes, we do. Topics. So, Bobby, you want to lead the way?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and start. The idea of separating the art from the artist, or the artist from the art. And I'll start with, I've gotten into the habit of saying, I like this guy's work on this. I try not to say, I don't know why I can only think of Leonardo DiCaprio, but I try not to say, I like Leonardo DiCaprio. I'll say, I enjoyed Leonardo DiCaprio's performance in One Battle After Another.
I see. Got it.
Because I don't know the guy.
Right.
I don't know what he does.
Right.
And I don't want to get
most
caught.
People know, like, that you're not talking about him as a person, but you're talking about his performances? Maybe not. All right, so go on.
I think the question is that it also frames the way I view the person, right? So instead of having this like parasocial relationship with like, oh, I think I know that guy. I don't know that person at all. I don't know anybody that I see over in YouTube or on a stream or whatever, but I can say I liked what they did in this piece. And then there's no, in like a couple of years, you find out that they're in the Epstein files and you're like, well, you still like that guy? And I'm like, yeah, I still like
By the way,
he did.
don't mention that on our stream, because we might get, who knows? Just mention, like, this is the world we live in now where you can't speak freely anymore.
I know. Oh, believe me, I know.
Yeah. But go on.
Only true end-to-end encryption on the chats. But yeah, so where do we separate the art from the artist? Can the art actually be separated from the artist?
I think it can, yes. So first of all, hello, Nick. I'm going to be trying to overall do much better about responding to chat. So hello, Nick. I think it can. Look, if you think about like Jasmine always commenting on my hair. Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you. Hello and welcome. Listen, I've always been very good, I think, at separating the art from the artist. Speaking of Leo, Ricky Gervais's great joke that, he loves to date younger women, so much so that by the end of tonight's program, his date will be too old for him. So he likes young women. He's dating women half his age. Go for it, man. But like, watch him in The Departed. I mean, you're going to see brilliance in a way that is very difficult to find. He is so committed. I think, in pop culture, most people know that in Django Unchained, when he smashes his fist on the table, he breaks a real glass and he's really fucking cut himself deep. And he just fucking keeps going. It's chilling when you sort of know the fact that the guy's profusely, and if you watch his reaction really close, it's like, he's like, for a nanosecond, he's like, oh, we better call cut, like a nanosecond. Like, you'd have to freeze frame. And, do I think, he might be happier with somebody his own age? Probably, because I think it's probably very lonely, I would imagine, because No, because I was just going to say, like, my girlfriend and I have quite an age difference of 15 years, in fact. And, I'll be like, oh man, remember when, they released the single Our House, and like how amazing. It's like,
Nope.
what? you know, and sometimes I feel lonely as a result. I got to be really honest. I do, but we're not so far apart. Like if she was, like in her 20s, like, yeah, that would just be way too far apart. So
I don't understand that at all. By the way, I don't.
Right.
Understand.
I mean, like at a certain point, it doesn't make sense. And my whole life, I had always dated women, my age, basically. Before my girlfriend, my last serious relationship that was 9 years, we were 6 months apart, and so, but the point is, like, I can separate the art from the artist, Bill Maher, I think he's brilliant in a lot of ways, right? But he's the same thing, man. He's like, I don't want kids. I want to date young women because I can. And it's like, you know what? God bless you, man. Go for it. But yeah, might get lonely.
Okay, so these are two, relatively minor.
Okay, so what I was going to say is, where I was going to go next is, when you look at somebody like Richard Wagner, right? Like the great opera composer, right?
Okay, yeah.
A vicious anti-Semite.
Right.
Vicious anti-Semite. Hitler's favorite composer. Hitler's favorite composer, right? The vicious anti-Semite. So, to your point, can you separate the art from the artist? I'll tell you what, I think it depends on your personal taste. So, for example, I've never liked Wagner, I never cared for his music. I'm not a big fan of opera, and as far as I know, he doesn't have any well-known symphonies, or maybe he didn't even ever write a symphony. I don't even know, right? I think.
What about Ride of the Valkyries?
Sorry, who?
Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries.
Oh, right, sure.
Dun,
I mean,
dun,
that's of course. I mean, it's a brilliant piece, but that's not any better than anything Dvorak did, or there's plenty of other people who achieved that, who that and better. You
have to give him credit for the
Mahler, for God's sake,
Right. But what about the credit he's given for the leitmotif?
All the power to him, man. Yeah, 100%, man. We owe him a debt of gratitude. But once again, the manifestation of his ideas they're brilliant and genius. However, I just can't dig on it, man. I can't get into the Wagner opera. However, the way in the hands of John Williams, the leitmotif is, like no one did it better than John Williams, in my opinion. There's no better example of the leitmotif, right? So, and for those who are watching who don't know,
we should explain that.
Yeah, I was just going to explain briefly. So, in these great operas before the time of Wagner, and not long after, because opera eventually fell out of fashion, but every storyline, there would be the main male character and the main lead female character, and then each one would have their best friend, who's like the male supporting character, and then the female supporting character. So the idea of the leitmotif, some people call it the Liedmotiv, but whatever, because it's spelled Liet. So the idea of the leitmotif is that each character gets their own musical theme, okay? And so if we use Star Wars, right? Princess Leia, da-dee, da-da-da-dum. So this is associated with her, right? Bum, 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 right? That's associated. It's actually the Imperial March. It's not Lord Vader's theme. It's actually to represent the evil of the Empire, including Palpatine and the whole lot. Bum 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 ba ba bum. Yeah, you get chills just thinking of it. No,
Literally got chills right now.
bum
Yeah,
bum
just that.
bum 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 ba 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 bum. Woo-wee. Smoking. So that's the Force theme. It's not Yoda's theme. It's the Force theme, is what it's called. So then imagine there's a moment where all of them are played at the same time. And all three of those melodies I just sang all play at the exact same time in the grand finale. And that's what he did. He associated each of the four characters, the principal four characters of the opera, each one had their own melody. And they would sing it. And then if the, let's say the female or the male character, doesn't matter, was, misses his true love or her true love, and, he will sing her melody. And the power of that is like, because he used music in a way that had never been done before, right? And that's the power of it. That's the power of the leitmotif, right? And then at the very end, in the big, big bang, the big final showstopper, all four characters are on stage, each one singing their melody, and they all work together seamlessly. It is genius on a level that is very difficult to explain. I just don't like his music. I've never liked his music, and Ride of the Valkyries, whatever. It's epic. It's awesome. It's, but Mahler is way more epic and awesome,
Right.
And more sophisticated. I find Wagner just to be, heavy pounding
Hammer.
fists,
Right.
jackhammers.
I would say that I think you did exactly that. You just separated the art from the artist, right? I don't particularly like his music. I definitely don't like his politics, but I can appreciate some of his work, and I can appreciate how genius his work
100%.
is. And I think that's part of the issue I think we have in our society today, is that we tend to see the art and the artist as one,
right? Because of social
entity.
media.
Right.
So I think that's one example where the reason it's easier to separate the art from the artist is because I think most, let's say, decent, loving people in the world, would agree that, racism is bad, anti-Semitism is bad, gender discrimination is bad. Like most people will agree with this, bigotry, prejudice. These are all not good things. So I think it's easier with Wagner because he hated the Jews. And again, just because it was Hitler's favorite composer, we shouldn't even mention that name on the stream. Probably we're gonna get a strike against us for hate speech. When we're absolutely, it's the opposite. But whatever. I think that it's easier with a composer like that, and it's more difficult with a composer like Beethoven, right? But the guy was a prick. I mean, a real, absolute 100% asshole, And by the way, I just want to quickly can respect the work at the core. So you think who they are translates to the art that they are creating? That's a great question, Jasmine. I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
I think Wagner's anti-Semitism is built into his opera.
Yeah,
does this hatred come out in his chord progressions?
Well, I'll say this. You know what? The other great debt of gratitude we owe to Wagner is the Tristan chord, it's often called. And this is very often is considered the birth of, atonalism, or, the 20th century begins with the Tristan chord, right? And I don't even think it's like so bad, the Tristan chord, but this is from his opera Tristan and Isolde. And it's very famous, and you study it in school, and, the Tristan chord, do you know about, and so it's another major, major milestone that, so, but I guess, I think, okay, so to answer Jasmine's question, I think that who they are does translate into the art they're creating. I put every ounce of my soul and my humanity and all the experiences that, made life what it is for me, it's all there in my music. You can hear it all there. So yes, I think the answer to that question overall is probably a yes. I think they do. Now, yeah, can you hear Jew hatred in the music of Wagner? Probably not, and certainly not in the Tristan chord. But I guess like if we separate, so for example, like, I always thought Ashton Kutcher was like the most adorable, sincere and authentic and just enjoyable to watch all of his performances, right? But now he's in the E-files, we'll call them, so we don't get a strike, right? And now
right.
and his best friend,
Right,
Dan,
right.
is
He went to
serving
jail
time
for
in
awful,
prison for
some
underage
awful shit.
shenanigans, right? So clearly it makes sense then that his best friend is in the E-files, right? So
Well,
then how do I, so I'll just to finish, like, so that's a situation where okay, so wait, I know exactly a way of explaining this. So yeah, I will think like, oh, what a scumbag, right? And he's being tried in the court of public opinion. And my opinion is what a douchebag for doing that, right? But then, for example, if I'm watching a great performance of his, I 100% separate the art from the artist because I'm enjoying the moment. However, there may be a moment in the show where maybe he looks and, rubbernecks and stares at a young girl's ass, and I'll be like, oh, right, the perv. That's where I cannot separate the art from the artist. Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah.
I guess.
So I don't know how many artists are in those files. It's a good way because I think it's a lot easier when you look at Wagner or Beethoven or people who aren't around anymore.
Right.
It's
It's
easier to
easier.
just be like, okay,
Much
they
easier.
did this, they did that. This was good, this was bad, and it's done. When they're still alive or recently deceased, it's a lot
It's
harder,
harder.
I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
I
I'm trying
agree.
to think of some good examples. Unfortunately, they're all just horrific. Yeah, I don't want to even talk about any of the
Yeah,
examples I
it's
can
hard
think of.
to, right?
You
But what
know,
was his name? Danny Masterson, I think is the guy. Like, there's a very
right,
good
right.
example of just,
So he,
modern.
so just to be clear, he went to jail for rape of
Okay, I thought it was
two
underage
girls who
stuff, but
they were not underage.
oh,
Yeah,
okay, fair enough. It's
just
still a
just to be clear.
horrific and
Still a
awful
horrible
crime.
thing and an
Yeah,
awful thing, and
yeah,
and yeah,
yeah, yeah. But I mean, look, this idea that we can't, categorize the severity of a crime, right? So, it's I think is like,
I
is
just
it?
don't think it's up to us as I
Well, I
think
get
that's what the justice system is for. And if you have a
right,
robust justice system, you shouldn't.
but if we're talking about separating the art from the artist, we all have our own moral compass, right? And so I guess what I'm trying to get at is that, if he essayed, some, grown adult women versus essaying 3-year-olds, I'm sorry, but in the court of public opinion and in my opinion, one is worse than the other, because, a child has no idea about understanding if they're in any kind of they have no cognitive ability, right? So,
Right.
but you know what? I mean, you're right. It's up to a court to decide that. But if we're talking about separating the art from the artist, I think it just like, Gary Glitter, right? Like he was caught with all these horrific images on his computer. And, it's just, I feel that it's, let's put it this way, every time I hear Rock and Roll Part 2, which I had to do a cover of, by the way, when I was in LA for one of my game clients on NHL 2K2 or something.
Okay.
And this is before he was caught for these horrific images on
Right.
his computer. And I always loved that song. I always thought it was great. As soon as I hear it now, I get sick to my stomach. So I can't, I suppose what I'm saying is that,
Some things you can't.
yeah, I think that yeah, exactly. Like some things are, look, I mean, doing anything against anyone against their will, I think at any
Is wrong.
age is wrong in every
Is wrong.
capacity, right?
100%. Yeah.
But I think there's a reason why there are longer and harsher sentences for things that are done to children, right?
Right. Right.
So
right.
that's my only point. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that in the same way that a judge will put a harder sentence on minors and children, is the same reason that I can't really listen to that song. I mean, it's still a great song. So I guess in some ways I can, but I just like, I get sick in my
So
stomach.
it's interesting how I think it happens with songs more than anything else. It, when a song gets used by something that you don't like, let's say it's in a commercial for a
Right.
product that you hate or whatever, with an actor or actress, whatever, it can ruin the song for you.
Yes.
Which now you have not. I mean, I guess that's not the artist, but in a way it is. So when the artist does something that you find repulsive morally, you have then combined the two and said, you know what?
I mean, look,
I'll throw the whole thing out.
sure. Look,
But yeah, I mean, we are human.
Look, Bob Marley, fathered, I don't even know how many children with how
Right.
many different women, and young women. And, John Lennon was a fucking piece of shit, as a person, and, he also, he abandoned his first family, never spoke to his first son, completely ignored him. Steve Jobs, with
Right.
his first daughter, right? Like denied paternity. The family was living on food stamps when he was like a multi-billionaire, and, I see Steve Jobs 100% in the same way I see Pablo Picasso. Only difference is Picasso made paintings, and want to talk about another fucking piece of shit person.
Right.
Holy cow, right? But I will always be able to separate the art from the artist in Steve Jobs and Picasso, always,
Right.
and probably with Wagner, despite how disgusting his views were. I guess in the end I can, only because I never really liked his music, right? So, but Steve Jobs really thought as an artist and created as an artist creates, and had an artist brain for sure. And that's why when they made the first Macintosh, he understood clearly that it was going to revolutionize the world, right?
Right.
He went to Tibet actually to, meet with a Buddhist monk, and showed him a circuit processor or something and said, I'm going to change humanity. And the monk basically said, then you must go.
Okay.
go and change, right? But when they made the Macintosh,
Not sure for the better, but
well, but when the point is that he got the whole team to sign it like a painting, right? Everybody signed the inside of it because he understood it was for the history books, and that this would always be remembered. And here we are, right? And whether you it doesn't matter if you hate Mac or love Mac, or you're like diehard Windows, or you're a Linux guy. It doesn't matter. You can't deny the fact that this one individual changed humanity. And the haters are going to hate. They're going to say, "Oh, but he never invented anything." True, but he made you. I mean, he did and he didn't. But you can argue because Apple was a shareholder in Xerox PARC, right? And Xerox PARC said, "We're not doing anything with the mouse. We're not doing anything with the GUI. If you want them, they're yours. Take them because they're junk, garbage." And so he literally took the waste paper scraps and then made what we have today. And that led to the iPhone. And so it doesn't matter if he didn't invent the GUI and didn't invent the idea of the mouse, right? The point is he understood, he understood that you needed it. And the guy was a piece of shit. Look at all the stories. Listen to every, Ronald Wayne, right? Sold his shares because he couldn't stand working with Steve. And I think today they're valued at 500 billion or something. Oh my God. Can you imagine the poor guy? Oh my God. And then
talk about separating the art from the artist.
Well, that's,
If he could have done that.
Yeah. But for I think he sold them for $300 or something. And for $300, just leave them in, see what happens. Right. Anyway. So I guess, it's, I think I think it's like we all have our own moral compass, and that will dictate kind of how we feel,
What we allow.
and what we tolerate when separating the art from the artist, right? So like, and by the way, Gary Glitter, you know, one hit wonder, right? And Rock and Roll Part 2, just a one hit wonder, right? So it's so easy that, you know, I listen to that song and I want to vomit, and, you know, so, you know, it's because it's horrible, right? Whereas with John Lennon, it's easier and you're more tolerant because he abandoned his children. Okay, happens, right? He didn't, you know, he didn't love his first wife. And Sean Lennon, you know, he adored Yoko, so he raised Sean like a true, like, this is my son, wrote songs for him and everything, you know. But it's easier to separate his horrible actions because of, you know, he wrote Imagine, you know. What do you want, you know? It's a great song, you know.
Okay.
And
So,
you know
so the answer is, if you want to be forgiven, you better have some really high quality shit, man.
You
Like
better-
it better be
you-
up there. Otherwise,
you better
you're
be like Beethoven, Steve Jobs, and John Lennon all wrote. Throw a dash of Paul McCartney in there and maybe some Peter Gabriel. Yeah, you got to be on that level, man. You know. And look, you know what? I think it's like, you know, like people are so fucked up, man. You know, and I think that, you know, personally, I don't believe that there's any such thing as a good person or a bad person. I think there's what I would call polite society, but even polite society can be horrid and awful. But I think that we're all varying degrees of good and bad. I think that, you know, I like to think of myself as a good person. My girlfriend thinks I'm a good person, and Jasmine thinks I have nice hair, so that must count for something. No separating the art from the artist there. Like, I love his music, but his haircut, you know. But I think that, you know, everybody makes mistakes, and some are just worse than others. And I think that when we look at people like Ashton Kutcher, you know, in the E-Files and stuff like that, and, you know, Woody Allen is in them, and, you know, everybody's in them, and of course Trump had, I think, 40 pages deleted out of them.
53.
Yeah, right. Fucking douchebag. Anyway, well, like, see, I'm not in the yeah, because you edited them, right? So, you know, but specifically, let's talk about the artists, right? Like, specifically Woody Allen. You cannot. And by the way, in a weird way, yeah, I think I couldn't separate the art from the artist on that one. When he, you know, was accused of, you know, doing bad things to his own daughters and to the adopted, you know, Vietnamese girl that he eventually married, you know. And so I just couldn't do it, man. I imagined this, you know, innocent Vietnamese child, you know, being adopted by Mia Farrow and Woody Allen, coming to America, and then through some form of manipulation, eventually he started, you know, and we don't know 100%. We'll never know.
We don't know. But I think that's my point, is because we don't know.
We're
aren't
more
we
tolerant?
always better off? No, I'm just saying, aren't we always better off to say, that movie, that piece of art is good. I don't know the man. I can't say I like him. I can't say I dislike him.
Yeah.
I don't know him.
And you know what's so funny?
I was not there. I have no idea. Right.
So like I can't watch movies like Zelig without feeling, you know, because he's starring in it, right? Or Manhattan, or, you know, some of his great classic movies. But I can watch Cassandra's Dream. I can watch Vicky Cristina Barcelona because he's not in it. And so I can, you know, I'm there and I'm watching some of the best performances ever recorded on film by anyone. Like the Vicky Cristina Barcelona is just, if you've never seen it, you have to watch. It's one of it's so good. It's so unbelievably good, and I love it. And it explores the life of an artist, right? And
so much of his work does. So much of his work
Yes, a
has an
lot of
artist,
us. Sure, New York
male
Stories.
artist.
Did you ever watch New York Stories?
Right, right,
Huh,
right.
my goodness, and the Nick Nolte character is essentially like how
Woody
Pablo
Allen.
Picasso behaved towards women, right? Oh, I'll give you
Oh,
an
right, right.
internship and you can live rent free in this New York loft, and then, but you have to
I'll
do,
be around.
uh, you know,
Right.
yeah. So, and then how that relationship sours, right? And
Yeah.
he understands so much about how artists work. In fact, um, you know, the other day I was thinking about this, about how, you know, a lot of artists procrastinate and leave things to the last minute. And I think that's actually a sign of creativity.
It
Um,
is 100%.
yeah, I really do. I really
100%.
think it is a
That's
sign, because it means that you are confident enough in your artistic abilities that in the last 5 minutes you can pull it off, man. You know?
right. Right. I think there's the idea that your unconscious mind is at work. That you have to give that side of your brain time to piece it all together. And then when you come back at those last 5 minutes, somehow you're like, oh shit, here it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a reason for that. It's not just like this
Yeah. Yeah.
anxiety
Yeah.
and
Yeah. It's a
not able to
psychological
do it.
thing. And this is why I always say I don't believe there is any such thing as writer's block. I just don't believe in it. I think you have good days and bad days. Today I had a
Right.
horrible day, and in my class you know was talking about beat making, in fact, and I just made a dud. Now if you were to hear it, you might think, oh, that sounds great. But when I know
Right.
what I'm capable of in terms of making really nice, legit beats,
Yeah.
this one was a
That's the
dud.
worst when you come up with something and you hear it and you're like, yeah, this is okay, but damn, I know it's, when it's not there, when it's not what it could
Right.
be,
What you're capable
and
of.
that
Yeah.
sucks.
There's
Yeah.
always this sort
That's
of
it.
disappointing feeling. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm just going to quickly read a few comments here.
Okay.
Man, this is getting muddy fast. Yeah. And by the way, apologies if we've talked about anything that, was
Right.
emotionally distressing. It's not what we're doing. We're just trying to get to this core idea of separating art from the artist. But it's not very black and white when it comes to the art and the artist. I agree, Nick. I totally get the moral compass idea. Yeah. I mean, it better be peak humanity for us even to look past your blunder in a nutshell. My blunder,
No,
or
no, he's referring to how we were saying your art better be
oh,
top
right,
tier for you to be able to get away
yeah,
with
yeah,
some
yeah,
of those
yeah,
crimes.
yeah, right. Yes, exactly. Yes, it should be peak humanity, but yeah, I guess yeah, it is what it is, and
Right.
but yeah, I think a lot of things really, really depend, and
Right.
I suppose that, yeah, as long as you're sort of, I think if you're operating within the confines of the law, you know what I mean? Like you're, Leo
Mhm.
or Bill Maher, and you want to date women.
Immoral, but not illegal.
Exactly. Like be as immoral as you want, be a complete debauched. I mean, just look at the stories of Led Zeppelin and Motley Crue and, these legendary party moments,
Right.
and, I mean, this is not cool at all, but the horrible exploitation of and power dynamic, between them and their groupies, right? But
Mm.
once again, power dynamic, bad. Taking advantage of vulnerable women, bad. But vulnerable women over
Not
the
illegal.
legal age.
Right. Well, that's a whole separate
Right. But I guess
awful
my
conversation.
my
But
point
yeah.
is, knowing how horrible some of them were with women. Like Led Zeppelin is always going to rock, man. I'm always going to love their music, Freddie Mercury, there's no one more debauched than him, right?
Mm.
In fact, when they
Right.
were making the Queen biopic, they had the best Freddie Mercury lookalike that you could ever imagine, which was Sacha Baron Cohen, right?
Right,
Right?
right. He's
That's
yeah.
Freddie
He
Mercury.
could have.
And he was
Yeah,
cast and set to star better than Malik. What I don't know the guy's name, but
Rami Malek.
right.
Yeah,
So Sacha Baron Cohen, I mean, that is
he would
Freddie
have killed it.
Mercury. It's a
Yeah,
killing spit image, in my opinion, you know?
yeah.
So, but he quit the project because Brian May and Roger Taylor were like, we can't portray, Freddie Mercury in the way you want, because he wanted to show the complete debauchery.
The real,
You
right,
know, like,
right.
he would hire like 10 midgets to be walking around the party and all with like, glass, sort of tables that just had lines of cocaine and dollar bills. And, you could just, snort off the head of a midget. Like, I mean, it's just like so debauched. And then of course the orgies and all the other things. And,
Yeah,
and the thing is his lifestyle, I mean, in the end, he died very young. And, now fair enough, like people didn't know about, the sexually transmitted diseases and things like that the way we know about it now. Right. But even still, so yeah, I guess it's, like I can never not love Bohemian Rhapsody. Who could ever not love it? Like it's just brilliant,
yeah. It's a classic.
It's it's more than a classic.
Right.
I mean,
It's a defining classic.
it's
Right.
literally, yeah. And, I don't know if people know this, but, in music, we have, there are many different forms, right? Like as simple as something like a rondo, which is, A, B, A, C, A, D, and you always come back and you repeat a section, and
Right.
sonata and allegro format and symphony formats. Like there's all these repeated parts that are expected to be repeated. Anyway, in music, we have something called through composed. And what that means is that there are no repeating sections. So there's no chorus in at all, because literally every segment of music is completely different, right? So it's almost like a bunch of small compositions, and you can't believe, like from a production standpoint, how brilliant that track is. So no matter what he did, and I'm sure he did horrible things that we never even heard about in his own private life, right? So yes, again, yes, better be peak humanity, as Nick said, for us to look past. So
So I'm gonna change the
yeah,
topic. I only have a few more minutes anyway. I got to get out of here,
yeah,
and
no problem.
so we can keep this stream short.
Sure.
The loudness wars.
Oh dear.
I know where you fall. My personal view is, it's not my personal view. I've heard this before and I agree with it. The volume knob exists for a reason, and you can give your music to somebody, and if they want to turn it up, they'll turn it up, as long as there's a reasonable volume. But the idea that it has to be, the true peak has to be +2 or +6, I think. Yeah, I'm not sure how necessary
I
that
can
is.
chime in on
I'll
this
just say
one.
one thing real quick. I can understand in a streaming age, if you want to be louder than the guy behind you or the guy in front of you, maybe.
And we can't allow that. And that's why Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Pandora, Tidal,
Right. They
all came
all
together and
they
they
all
said, this is the standard, because it's ridiculous. You can't go from one to the next. The problem is, especially with low quality YouTube videos, when they are so low that you turn it up, or you start your feed on a very low volume and you turn it up, like you said,
Yeah.
you have a volume knob, and then the next video blows out your eardrums and blows your speakers out. So that's the problem. But we have to also talk about the there is an artistic reason why the loudness wars exist. So for those, by the way, who are watching that don't understand what, the loudness wars are. So, when DJs were spinning records and also in jukebox machines, people started noticing that the songs that were louder were more popular and got more plays, right? So when recordings were finished and mastering process began, which part of which is determining the loudness, people started to compete against each other for who could make a louder record, right? And, if you look at Steely Dan, Gaucho, for example, I mean, it's like really itty
Yeah.
bitty bitty
Yeah.
bitty, and, so these albums from the 70s and 80s are quite soft compared to modern recordings. And so, once you get really into the 90s and you start seeing solid state amps, solid state compressors, we leave the tube era behind, you really see a major jump in loudness levels. And the thing is, when you are pushing your input gain against a limiter that's artificially bringing it down, you're going to add more harmonic content and saturation. And so it gives something to the music that was not there before. And all forms of compression, not all, I mean, okay, I'll say all forms of compression and limiting and clipping, which are these three techniques we use to control our dynamic range and add harmonics and all kinds of other things, can be 100% transparent, so you don't even know it's there, or completely colorful and adding lots of lush, One of the more famous solid state compressors is the Distressor, right? From Empirical Labs, one of my favorite compressors because they're combining saturation, so dist on distressor and stressor for compressor, right? So distressor, they are combining saturation with compression and the result is just lovely, And so I guess, well, first of all, the loudness wars are over, okay? And the winner of the war is loudness. Loudness won. Because, in the end, we're stuck now with this, between minus 14 and 16 LUFS, which is the Spotify / YouTube Apple standard, right? I think Apple Music is minus 16. I believe Spotify is 14.
14.
So, yeah.
I think YouTube is also 14.
And YouTube is 14, right? So, Apple's
Netflix
a little bit on the
expects
conservative
deliveries at
side.
minus 23, I think.
No, really?
I think so.
Wow, that's
don't
crazy.
quote me.
Okay. Anyway, so the point is, the loudness wars happened, loudness won, and now the major tech platforms basically declared the end of the war. They're like, all right, loudness won. We're at minus 14 LUFS maximum. But you see, I always encourage my students, because one of my students once said, like, you're at minus 8 LUFS, like, you do realize Spotify maximum is in minus 14. Why would you master at minus 8? I'm like, because it sounds good, because I'm adding harmonic content, because I'd rather, have a really, really loud mix and have them attenuate my mix down by 6 decibels because I'm getting a different result by squashing my compressor as hard as I'm compressing. And I like the aesthetic result of doing that. And I mean, I didn't say it in a matter of fact, like the way I'm saying it now. I explained it more like in a chill way, like, like you're 100% right. I know it's going to be attenuated, but I just, I like the aesthetics of, getting a really, compressed and very, very limited mix and a very saturated sound and, coming right up to the point of digital distortion and then adding a soft clipper on the very final part of the chain. Mm-hmm. Because I'm a drummer percussionist, and so clippers for drums are, an essential. So I put it on the whole mix, at the very end. And, if you A/B my Play With My Heart album and play it against anything, it's not going to sound like a piece of garbage. It's going to sound like a properly mixed record, So, I'm not a mixing engineer. I mean, all this stuff in here, I've learned how to use it all, but I'm not, a genius mixing engineer. But yeah, I like
mixing and mastering, they are their own, they're their own separate art.
Right.
Um,
And they really are, yes. But what I did and what confuses a lot of my students, especially, in fact, is that I combine mastering and mixing into the same process. So I
yeah, I
leave,
know.
and a lot
I
of
know
people are
you do.
confused by this. They just don't get it. Why would you do that? Because the purpose of mastering is to take the imperfections of your mix and work them out, and it's also there to make level match and make
Right,
sure
right. To
if you
make sure it's a
recorded.
cohesive
Right.
product
If
at the
you,
end.
for example, if you recorded an album in New York and mixed it in LA and then another one in London and then mixed another one in Chicago, it's like the mastering makes it feel like it, more or less like
It's
it
all
was all
together.
done in one place. Right.
Right.
So, but for me, it's just, it was like part of it was time consumption, that,
Right, right.
right. Like here, I finished
Yeah.
my mix, sounds great, but now I got to go in and do the
I gotta go
mastering. And
back
so,
and right.
so for me, it was just like, it was a time saving thing. It was just like, well, why don't I just slap on my mastering chain and just call it a day? And what I did is like, very, very, very religiously in the beginning, of that process of doing that. Yeah, I like check things really carefully, and I'm just like, well, I just check this against Steely Dan and the Beatles, and I just check this against, one of my favorites, Peter Gabriel, Us, and So.
Hmm.
These two records are just legendary, and the
Right.
mixes are just brilliant on them, and the mastering again, it's very soft compared to today. But my point is I would balance adjust, and I'm like, well, if it sounds good
Do you
against,
think that
mm,
there's a, do you think then you miss the part where you're gonna bring out more, like let's say harmonics or distortion or something in a certain track because you're already set in, you think it, or it is what it is. I mean,
I don't know.
you
For
heard
me,
like
like
you don't go back and adjust it.
I don't think about it that much,
Right.
and I suppose like, you know, I suppose for me, like when I'm, even when I'm mixing a record for like my client in Canada, his name is Pascal Dennis. You can go check his stuff out. It's great. Yeah, like I don't think about it. I like to really just set it and forget it, And
Right.
then what I did with my solo album and what I do with his albums before they get released is I always grab the AirPods Pro, and I just pop them in and I listen from beginning to end, and then I make notes. I literally write things down. Like, you
Yeah.
know, can't hear the keyboards loud enough on this track at this timestamp. The horns jump out way too loud on the chorus compared to the verse. Bring those down, and I'll literally I take walks, in the morning, and I'll have the AirPods in. I'm walking, and then I just sit there with my phone. And I can type my notes in, and every now and then I walk into a tree, and people can, I'll be that guy in the YouTube video
Right.
where, look how stupid this idiot walked right into a tree. That's me. No, you know what? I have a great technique against that. What I do is I stop and I move to the side of the sidewalk so I'm not bothering
Mhm.
any other pedestrians, and then I go about my business, and then I start walking again. So I never do that. I'm never that person. So I think we've all been that person at one point or another, but yeah. So yeah, the loudness wars are finished, and I still would way rather submit mixes super hot and have the powers that be attenuate the mix, because I like how my mixes sound all compressed, and even our other partner Emanuele, he would several times has said to me like, you over compress, it's too much. I was like, well, I
Right.
like how it sounds, man. What do you want?
That's your sound. Yeah.
It's like,
That's
I
fine.
don't tell you put too much distortion on your electric guitar solo. You like that sound, right? I like this sound, right?
You can't tell Van Gogh he used too much blue.
Right.
Just can't.
Or,
You know.
you should have put color in Guernica, Pablo.
Right.
Yeah, you're not allowed to do that, right? So, yeah. So
Well, I
anyway,
think
yeah,
on
I know
that,
you got to go.
yeah.
So yeah, maybe I'll just stick around for a minute or two, catch up on chat, and yeah. Other than that, we'll call it a day. So you can sign off, and I'll
Thank you
talk
all. Thank you,
to
David.
this is a very quiet night, this stream. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the person who calls me an enemy went and poisoned the well and told everybody, avoid him because he's the enemy. Who knows why? But, Spin is there, but then he's so quiet. Maybe he's working, who knows what. But anyway. All right, Bobby, you take care. And I'm going to stick around and talk to the rest of the crew here and see what's what. So,
all right.
Take care, Bobby.
Take care. Bye-bye.
So, yeah, anybody have any, I realize my banners are not on. Anybody, I don't know, does anyone have anything on their mind, or did I miss any, oh, Spin's there. I was worried, Spin, like, where's Spin? Thank you for being here. I appreciate it, Spin. Just see if, yeah, exactly. With the volume differences, it can be very annoying. So yeah, but other than that, I don't think I missed anyone's chats because it's been a very quiet evening. So, anyway, maybe also it's because we're, a little bit shifting our focus from, a Pac-Man stream to more of a broad general stream, like more of a podcast format. Maybe the diehard Pac-Man folks are just like, yeah, I just want to come and see Pac-Man. So I'm sure you guys have noticed a lack of Pac-Man. It's, I think the conversation format is a lot more interesting personally. I do. What is your opinion on sample modeling? I have all their stuff. I own every single one of their products. Yeah. Not the chamber strings though. I just have it's called the all-in bundle. So I have all the solo strings, all the solo winds, all the solo brass. Love them. There's also another company called like Audio Sampling. I can't remember what the hell are they called. Do you know UV Workstation? Do you know that at all? Let's see. What the hell are these? I always forget their name. And let me see if I can find them here for a minute. Anyway, I like their stuff too. But yes, the sample modeling. Oh, wait, did you say sample modeling or audio modeling? Sample modeling, right. Yeah, so I'll tell you about that in 1 second. But let me just quickly, because I want to tell you the name of this other company. Acoustic Samples, that's what they're called. Yeah. And they make really nice too. So yes, I take it back. I thought you were talking about audio modeling. Yeah, UVI is great. I mean, it's so amazing for things I didn't even realize it was good for. I mean, it's just incredible, the UVI workstation. So I've been very happy with it. I only recently came into it like 3 or 4 months ago. So yeah, I think, so the company Sample Modeling was basically run by 2 guys. And I guess they had some disagreements. Who knows about, I think the sample modeling. Oh, you have the V horns. Wonderful. So you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So the, I don't know why they split apart. I guess probably the guy who started audio modeling wanted to do more of the physical modeling rather than basing it on samples. And anyway, the point is they split off into two different companies. And so audio modeling, actually their studio's very close to me, and they invited me to their studio, in fact, because they wanted to know my opinion on their strings. And they were not really happy with what I had to say about their strings. But regardless, I told them the truth. And they weren't bad at all, but I was just trying to explain that the real acoustic phenomenon of, when you have a desk of 7, 14, or, super large 28 players, there's a very specific acoustic phenomenon that happens with the harmonics blending, right? And in fact, if you have 3 violinists, I believe it's 3, yeah, playing, you'll hear 3 solo violins. As soon as you add 4, it sounds like a section of violins. It's just crazy. So there's these acoustic phenomena, and I explained to them that because what they did is they made 28 instances of their solo violin. and ran it through a reverb and tried to emulate the harmonics. And I just said, it's just acoustically, it's not correct, you know? And they were kind of disappointed with me, and I never got invited back to that studio. But I told the truth. And funny enough, sample modeling, which I don't own their products. I believe the famous Peter Sidliacek, I think, is involved with that company now, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just check for you here. I think he's now part of that company. Let's see, About Us. Let's click on that. Just check here real quick. Peter Sidliacek, yes, co-founder. The very famous Peter Sidliacek, who was responsible for all of the great orchestral samples that Roland put into all their devices. That Peter Sidliacek is one of the co-founders of sample modeling. So, you know, I think, yeah, I mean, I think they're some of the best products that you can buy for physical modeling. So yeah, I love their products. So Turkish libraries, I can make a couple of recommendations to you. Well, there's an old classic, which is Voices of Istanbul. Still use it, believe it or not, on some things. Not a lot, but some. If you're looking for a great Turkish oud, Impact Soundworks has the best oud I've ever heard in my whole life. The Stretsov sampling Arabic ethnic orchestra, I was not crazy about. I didn't like it too much. And oh yes, I was going to say, yeah, the native instruments, you know, woof, that's amazing. That sounds wonderful. Oh yes, for percussion, there's a fantastic library. I mean, it's probably the best percussion library I own as far as that goes. But the fact that it's, you know, an Arabic percussion library, it's from Best Service. Do you know those guys? They have this player, it's called Engine Audio Player. There are two versions. One is just called Engine, the other is Engine Audio Player. It's for Engine Audio Player. And I'll get you the link. Hold on a second. Let me find you the link. It's really the best, by far the best, you know, Arabic / Turkish. And by the way, you know, with the oud, and let me just quickly log in over here. With the oud, there, yes, it's called the Arabic Percussion Collection. Here, I'll give you the link so you have it if you are interested in taking it. So here we go. There's the link. So just so you guys understand, you know, I'm not interchanging Turkish and Arabic, you know, lightly. I mean, the point is that there is a lot of crossover. So the oud, the instrument, is the same. There are three varieties, but there's the Turkish oud, the Arabic oud, and the Persian oud, and all three are essentially the same instrument. It's just the playing techniques, the scales they vary from each of those cultural traditions, but instrument is fundamentally the same. By the way, the oud is actually the European lute. It was brought back to the Ottoman Empire by the Turks that, you know, invaded the eastern southern parts of Europe and eventually got as far as Vienna, in fact, and they brought back the oud because they loved it. So, yeah. But yeah, so I do love the Middle East. like I said, I wasn't crazy for the Arabic ethnic orchestra. I didn't like it too much. But you know, there's there are there's another physical modeling company out there, and they're called Mo Forte, M-O Forte, like forte in music. And their product is called Geo Shred. Geo Shred. It's a horrible name for a product, but that's what it's called. Anyway, just incredible. It's really incredible. And they have all kinds of ethnic instruments, you know, like 30, 40, and you can buy them piecemeal. They also have all the audio modeling, SWAM instruments, the trumpets, everything, and all, you know, retrofitted for the Geo Shred instrument. Anyway, they're great. I mean, Geo, and I am officially endorsed, by the way. So I'm an artist in residence with Geo Shred, or with Mo Forte. And I bought the whole package with my own money, but now they gave me their new pack for free, and they gave me the audio modeling for free, even though I already owned it, but I only owned it for VST AU. I didn't own it for because their whole system, you play it on an iPad, by the way. And it sounds weird, but it's positively amazing. You can just go check them out. They're wonderful. So anyway, anybody else have any other final thoughts or questions or anything you want to go over? And again, I apologize really sincerely if any of tonight's subject matter was, you know, a little bit, you know, controversial. It's certainly not the point of this stream. You know, everything is being, you know, talked about from the perspective of, you know, kind, decent, loving people that don't want to hurt anyone and don't want to be hurt, you know. I need to ask this. Do you remember the snare you used to sample the DAW Samba? So the snare, I mean, it was all my Pearl drum kit. And so the toms are all, well, there's only one tom, but yeah, it is the snare drum. Like, I've always had a collection. More than likely, it was probably the Ludwig LM 402 or the 401, or the 400, sorry. These are two iconic Ludwig snare drums. The LM402 is what John Bonham played in Led Zeppelin. The LM400 was the model number that Ringo Starr played with the Beatles. So thank you, Jasmine. You are always so kind and supportive. Yeah. And I'm glad you appreciate my hair, you know. It's always nice when somebody appreciates my hair. Luna Morley, have I is this, you're just coming in, Luna Morley? I don't recall you, honestly. So, oh boy, I just dropped in time for the stream to be wrapping up. It's kind of a short stream though, because Bobby had to end early. Darn, hopefully I'll have better luck next week. Yeah, you know, early bird gets the worm there, Luna Morley. Luna Morley, do you have any questions or anything you want to ask, since you just arrived and I want to make it worth your while and reward you? I'll stay on another 5 or 10 minutes. If you have some specific questions, I'm happy to answer for you. So yeah, you know, listen, you know, last week was a really intense stream. I mean, it was 2 hours and a half almost, and it was very emotional for me. And yeah, you know, I'm an emotional person, you know, and it's just part of who I am, I suppose. I'm guessing the 101 drum kit you sampled for World 2 was a Pearl kit? No, it was not. So to give you an idea about that, the Pearl kit, that and the DAW Samba, the original DAW Samba, that was recorded in the year 1995 and with one microphone. The 101 kit was recorded when I was living in Hollywood, and there was a wonderful studio there called 1-on-1 South, which is why the drums are called 101, right? 1-on-1. Wonderful, wonderful studio. It used to be called Brooklyn Recording, and it was set up by Freddie DeMann, who was Madonna's manager for many years. And so my engineer that I would hire when I needed to, mix like a serious album, his name was Justin Smith. Wonderful guy. Love him. He's amazing. So sweet and kind and pure. And anyway, he was a resident engineer in-house at 1-on-1 South. And so he'd be like, dude, nothing's booked, man. Do you want to just come and play? And I'd be like, hell yeah, I want to come and play. And oh, stop it, the great composer. Which great composer? Where? Bobby already left, He's a great composer. All right, I'm being too modest. I wouldn't know, but honestly, I don't see myself as a great composer, but I think I'm very competent. Anyway, so I'm a drummer, and the in-house senior engineer, he had a vintage 1970s Slingerland drum set. So these are really beautiful vintage drums. And I know for a fact I brought my LM402 that day. And so the 1-on-1 South recording sessions, 6 hours of just recording drums. And I have so much material from it, even things that are still like just lying around, and I never bothered to cut them. But I cut what I need, and I got some truly amazing sounds. But yeah, so the DAW Samba sonically doesn't sound as good as the 1-on-1 South recordings. And but yeah, those recordings, I've used those in 1,000,001. And I mean, they were on X-Men Mutant Academy. I use those things like crazy, my 1-on-1 South drums. You know what? I don't think I have any. For a fact, I don't have them, because everything was recorded to DAT tape, digital audio tape back then. And so you're talking from 1995. Yeah, the archives don't go that far back. I do have some outtakes of other types of things that I played on, but those loops in particular, I don't. And, I mean, I suppose I'm going to do like a check here for, DAW Samba and see if I can find it located on any other, because that would be amazing, no? Some of the outtakes from DAW Samba, that'd be amazing if I could find them. But I'm telling you, there's like a 99.999% chance that I'm never going to find them and that they're gone forever. So, yeah, I mean, in my archives, and this is just the old archive drive, already it's found 1,300 matches. And yeah, none of them are more than, let's see, let me look at specific file types here. So we have AIFFs, mastered. I'm just scrolling through here to see if I can find left, right, no feet, DAW Samba, no feet, Sound Designer 2. No, that's AIFF. So just loops. Yeah. Just loops only. And by the way, I do have other loops from the same session. I do have other loops. If you want, I can play you some of them. So, right. So here's the DAW Samba. Here, basic rock loop. Okay. So there's lots of, funky, slow. These are all from the same recording session. So they were all recorded on the same day. Yeah, so there's lots of other, not lots, there's maybe 20 loops. I love this loop. I used to be a half decent drummer back in the day, so, but yeah, there's no way the outtakes are from that specific samba are, there's no way. But I'll tell you what, one day, and could be coming sooner than I think, and certainly that I hope, I will re-record it. Okay, I'll re-record it because, you know, I live in a very small apartment, and my drums are, you know, literally packed into the corner, all shells inside of each other, so I couldn't even play that beat if I wanted to. But if I'm considering maybe moving, because it's really, you know, this place is not big enough for my studio and to live the way I want to live, you know. So, oh, by the way, by next stream, I'm really hoping, I've ordered a Behringer clone of the ARP 2600, because once you start with the analog, it's like a drug, man. It becomes a drug. Anyway, if I do move, I promise, if you remind me, Spin, I'll re-record with lots of outtakes the DAW Samba. Because in my career, and certainly on this stream, it's kind of become legendary in a strange way, no? Let me catch up on the chat. No worries, I'm an emotional person too. Good to know I'm in good company. I don't have any questions. Mostly wanted to drop in and listen. Yeah, okay. I wonder if these outtakes, right? I talked about that. I'd love to get you into a studio, spend all day sampling a drum kit for myself someday. Hey, Spin, man, you know, that day could be sooner than you think. Okay. And look, we can make it happen. There's no reason we couldn't make it happen. And, you know, I'm sorry that I sort of walked back the X-Men project. But perhaps, I don't know, maybe we could do something with the One-on-One South. Maybe you could help me cut that into, you know, what I always hoped it could be, you know. I mean, we can talk about it, you know, why not? Okay. My God, that's clean. Yeah, I was once a decent drummer. I was once not bad. You know, I don't think I would sound quite that clean today, but if I practiced for a while, probably. I just wanted to say the Pac-Man World 2 soundtrack alone has shaped the way I write melodies. Man, thank you for saying that, you know. Seriously, it means a lot to me that you would say that. Because in the end, that's my only hope, is that, you know, I can affect change in the world in a positive way, you know, that I can, you know, inspire a new, younger generation of composers with my music. That's the greatest thing you could ever say to me, you know. Genuinely huge inspiration. Thank you, man. I mean, really, really, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. Oh, since we're here, Pac-Man's birthday was yesterday. Yeah, right. I sort of said maybe I'll do a surprise stream, but honestly, I forgot. Sorry. As much as I'm proud of and love Pac-Man World 2 and love my soundtrack, I just, you know, I'm not, it's not that important to me, the anniversary. Was it the 220? It's the 24th anniversary. So next year, man, we got to do something big. We got to plan something. Listen, man, I've asked you guys many times, you know, bring friends to the stream, help me grow the stream, but it hasn't grown. If anything, the numbers are going down over time. But, you know, if we want to do a big celebration for the 25th anniversary, I'll need your help, you know, because, you know, I don't have that time and energy to, you know, use social media and get everybody involved. You know, I need someone to take it over and help me coordinate it. The DAW Samba 2 would be cool to see. Hell yeah. So I'll tell you what, when and if I move and I'm set up, I promise I'll live stream me playing drums, okay? And you can record some outtakes of the Dal Samba too. I'll be so rusty though. Oh my goodness. Right. So the problem's been with turning the 101 into a proper drum kit. Yes, I did lots of singles and whatnot. But the idea of round robin sampling, it wasn't really a thing back then. So that being said, you know, it would be difficult. You'll find some round robins. I mean, you know, where I'm playing multiple of the same hit, but not like to turn it into a modern proper. Now, you know what you could do is you could take, for example, if I'm doing a beat, there's lots of outtakes of lots of beats of me playing and repeating the same beat over and over and over again. So for example, you might be able to cut some snares out and maybe make some round robins artificially. I don't know, you know. But again, you know, the problem is me finding the time to kind of dig it all up and prep it and send it. And, you know, it's like, it's work for me, right? And like my life is already busy and I'm tired and I'm getting old and my diabetes is not going so good. And, you know, so every minute of spare time you can tell, by the way, tonight I'm exhausted now, so more than usual. So like whenever I have a spare moment, you know, the last thing I want to do is more work. I mean, I guess I could just find it as it is now, ship it off to you, and then just say go, you know. But like Spin, do you know how to do like round robin programming in Contact, for example? Do you understand kind of how that works? Also, do you know how Recycle works from Reason Studios? Because you would kind of need to know both of those pieces of software to be able to turn it into anything, you know. So, yeah, Luna, you're with me. Thank you. You get that. Yeah. Guys, life is hard, man. You know, life is very hard. And, you know, I need a lot of energy for composing music. And, you know, I try to schedule all my teaching and this stream all on the same day. So Fridays is like my sort of day where I just like, I'm not doing any music at all. And it's just for streaming and for, you know, my students. And I have a little 2-hour class on Mondays, but, you know, that's it. Just 2 hours in the morning. It's only for 10 weeks. So it's not much. And my Friday classes are every other week. So why last week I had lots of energy and did a 2.5-hour stream, and why today I taught for 6 hours and I'm exhausted, you know, so that's how it is. But, you know, 8 hours of class a week is, you know, probably it's already too much, you know. I don't know that I want to do that much, but it's not 8 hours of class a week. It's 2 hours. Well, I guess if you sort of average it out, yeah, 2 hours every week, and then 6 hours every other week. So it's actually only 5 hours a week. Actually, that's fine. It's just the fact that I have to do the 6 hours in a row. It's not easy, you know. Anyway, okay. So so here's what I'd say, Spin. If I were you, if you really want to get, you know, heavily involved in this and we wind up making it a project, you'd really need to know how to use Recycle and how to use, you know, Contact in a deeper way. Because otherwise there's not really any point of doing a collaboration, honestly, you know, no offense. I mean, I'm just saying that, you know, for it to be worth my while, I would need it to be handed back to me as Contact libraries that work, you know. And if you don't know how to use them, I'd suggest look, it's not hard. Like learning Contact, it's not hard, you know. There is some programming and coding involved. So if you're good at coding, then you'll naturally fit in. I'm terrible at it. And I usually just copy code. Oh, excuse me. From other people that have already written scripts that will work and make function what I need done. So... right. But, you know, look, I mean, it's one thing to collaborate on a project. It's, you know, I'm not interested in giving out my sounds, you know. I'll tell you what, Spin, at a certain point, okay, what I'll do is I'll put together the David Logan celebrity sample pack because I'm such a famous celebrity. No. Well, maybe what I'll do one day is I'll include the Dal Samba. I'll get a selection of one shots from the 101 South. Maybe I'll grab a few of the classic Sidliacek melodic instruments and the African pipe that you love so much. And maybe I'll make like a sort of custom library of, David Logan go-to. I don't know, Anyway. Nick says he believes in us, so that's good to know. Thank you. So it's not hard. I've been converting my favorite Will Lee. Do you want to know something about Will Lee? He was is it Will Lee? No, it's Lee Alexander. I just heard the Lee part and I thought, no, it's a different Lee. Lee Alexander, sorry. You've been converting into Contact and learning how to do the basic key switches. Great. Yeah, I mean, that's all part of it. Nick, was there a certain comment that made you say you believe in you guys? That's wonderful. It's always nice. Anyway, so one day spin, I don't promise because I hate the word promise and what it implies. So it is my great desire to one day at some point in the future make a sample pack for you and anybody. I'll make it open, public, and anybody that wants it can download it, because I know Kiwi would probably want a copy of it, and anyone else who does come to the stream for tips on music production and whatever. I really want to do that, but I'm not going to promise it because I hate the word promise altogether. Yeah. Especially when people say, oh, promises are made to be broken. Like, why would anyone say that? So when I make a promise, it's literally a guarantee, unless there's some act of the universe that is beyond my control. So anyway, so yeah, one day I'll do that. And you know what? Every 3 months, just remind me, are we any closer to the celebrity David Logan sample pack? And I might go, what the hell is that? I don't know what the hell are you talking about? Well, timestamp our stream and then just go, here, David, go to this YouTube link of your stream and go to the timestamp at, what's our timestamp right now? Where are we here? Why can't I see? Oh, 1 hour, 26 minutes and 10 seconds. And then I'll be like, oh, right. The sample pack, the David Logan sample pack. So the 5-string acoustic fretless bass in that CD was my go-to bass for so long. Yeah, I mean, are you talking about Bass Legends? It's a fantastic library. I mean, it's just amazing. You all have more musical talent and knowledge than I. Surely you will learn soon enough and master recycle. Yeah, I mean, look, you know what? Listen, at one point I didn't know what Contact was. I didn't know what recycle was. At one point, I didn't know what the leitmotif was. At one point, I literally did not know what counterpoint is. Like, I had no idea what it was as a concept. It was foreign to me. And, we live in the age of YouTube and tutorials, and everything can be learned. When I was learning this, and I think this is part of the reason why, I know every generation before thinks the younger generation is not as smart or hardworking, but I think that we have something that never existed in human history, which is, quick tutorials on YouTube and, a generation that doesn't have an attention span, that they can't focus for more than 60 seconds. Bill Maher was talking about a survey of Gen Z, saying that they find it intolerable to watch a TikTok that's more than 35 seconds, or that's a sweet spot and they can't do anything long. It's like crazy, man. The Will Lee bass. Oh yeah, right. Yeah. Right. I actually, yeah, I know of that library actually. But Nick, you're right. Eventually you can learn recycle. It's a dead simple piece of software. It's really good and really easy, and it only does one thing, and that's what I love about it. It just does one thing. I came across the ISO for it and I fell in love with it ever since. And I am just transitioning it from sound font converts to Contact. Yeah, it's great. Fantastic, man. So you're already getting under the hood of Contact, which, so yeah, anyway, all good. Anybody else have a final thought, comment, question before I say goodnight? Because I'm really tired. I need some sleep. Anything at all? I know there's a little delay in the chat, so I'll just wait a moment. But I'll prepare my good evening, good night, and then if there's a question, I'll come back and answer it. But if there's not, like I always say, I think the purpose of life is to find some purpose in life, and I think the meaning of life is to find some meaning in life. And guys, I appreciate all of you. Let's see. This is what separates us from those born circa 2010. We used to sit back and listen to 3 hours. Yeah. Well, I thought you were going to say reading books, or listening to CDs or whatever, but yeah. Anyway, thank you guys. Yeah, I know there's nothing wrong with a shorter stream. I know. It's all good. We did have a good talk like always. So I appreciate all of you guys, really. And like I said, purpose of life, meaning of life. I like to see purpose and meaning as yin and yang, or heads and tails, right? It's one coin, two sides, right? Because once when you have a purpose in life, so this stream gives me some purpose in life, right? Because I know that you guys come and you want to hang out and you learn things. And so that purpose, the fact that I feel I have some purpose, and when I teach my students at my master's level students, it's very gratifying, and it gives me a sense of purpose. Writing the Pac-Man World 2 soundtrack also, fills me with a certain sense of purpose in life, that I was meant to do that. And then what happens is all the yield from the result of that, you guys are the yield. You're literally the yield of that soundtrack, because you loved it, you came, and here we are, right? And that adds meaning into my life. So that's why I say it's like yin and yang, purpose and meaning, right? So I hope you all find your purpose, because it's when we feel we have a purpose in life, okay? It's a very satisfying feeling, it gives us a sense of value in the world. And yeah, so doing this really does make me feel like I've got some purpose, and then I derive meaning, very special meaning, And, I thought about the whole thing from last week, saying if I get any feedback, or not feedback, but flack or harassment from who, I never mentioned his name, but I saw some people in my private server who were guessing, and they guessed correctly. Do not mention the person's name on this public stream. Please, I beg you, because I don't want anyone to know who he is, but I think most people already know. Anyway. Please do not mention his name ever, because I don't want to hurt him in any way, or, make his reputation go down or anything like that. Anyway, but, I mentioned, like, if I do get harassed again, probably I'll end the stream and I'll shut it down. And, I don't know if I could ever do that, because why should I let a bully control me, And it's not even that, that's one way of looking at it. The way I was explaining it last week was that it's just not worth the problem, not worth the stress and the anxiety, and, just not worth it, man, But anyway, everything was fine. I didn't hear from them, and, all good. So, nice to see you have an analogy for the words. Cool explanation. Yeah, thank you. I think about words and their meaning, like when for example, this be authentic, right? What does it mean, authentic? What does that word mean? And I've often thought about this. What does the word authentic in fact mean? And I suppose for me, it means it's more than just being truthful and honest and sincere. It's showing a rawness that would make you be seen in a less favorable light. Do you understand? So it's when you show the truest part of yourself, probably in the pursuit of truth and sincerity and honesty, but it makes you look bad, you know? And I suppose it's also, you know, not being afraid to expose the most vulnerable parts of yourself. I think it's part of authenticity. Okay, I think I know what it is better as I explain it. I think it's not changing the outcomes of your life to be viewed in a more favorable, positive light. That might be a better explanation of what is authenticity. I think it's the opposite of disingenuous, right? So disingenuous is when we pretend to know less or more information for our own personal gain. And I think authenticity does the opposite of that, right? So for example, you know, we all had these teachers when we were in school where you would challenge your teacher, not to challenge them to be an asshole. You would challenge them because maybe what they said is not correct, or you're confused and you want clarification. So you say, but is that really true? I thought it was this and I thought it was that. And then the teacher gaslights you and says, oh, well, you know, like, look, that's not even the subject. What you should really be focusing on. And you know that they don't know the answer. So when that happens to me, which, you know, maybe 2 or 3 times a month, I'll run into that exact situation, you know, and sometimes I don't know the answer, and I'll just say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that question. But, you know, we can take some time in class right now and try and find the answer together, or give me a week and, you know, or 2 weeks in the example of my class that's every other week. You know, give me a week or 2 and I'll try to find the answer, and I'll come back in our next class and I'll have a good answer for you. And if I come back and I, you know, did the research, but I still don't have a good answer, I'll just say, you know what? I'm stuck on this one. I think that's authentic. I think it's very authentic when you can admit that you don't know something, you know. So for example, like, you know, when I pretended to say, you know, oh, I'm not a great composer, you know, like that's a little bit disingenuous, because maybe I'm not a great composer, but I know I'm good. I would argue very good. I think my gifts are rhythm and melody, really. I mean, I think my melodies really do have something really quite special. And, you know, just yesterday I was listening, or like last 2 days or so, and I might have played this for you guys on the stream, but let's listen to it again. What the hell, no? This track I did for another game for a client of mine. I think we called it like Pac-Man World 2 2.0 because it was so Pac-Man-y. Oh, wait, no, that's something else. Wait, I'm on the wrong track. Here it is. I found it. So here we go. Yeah, I love this track, and it's very Pac-Man-y and has some really quite nice melodies. think there's anything mediocre about that. I love that track. And that's one of the tracks I listened to. I'm like, what? I wrote that? How's that possible? So, oh wow, some actually guessed, but of course, until you two decide to make public amends. No, yeah, exactly. Thank you for respecting that, Nick, because I do want to make public amends, very much so. And so, yeah, I don't want his name, anything negative. Yeah, exactly. I feel we might have heard this one a while ago, but if true, I think we definitely felt that the vibe. Yeah. So yeah, it is what it is, man. All it's missing is the Benny and June. Spin always knows, man. He always knows. It's true. He's always right. He always knows, because you're right. The Benny and June would have sounded great there. No, the fact I didn't work that into this track is shameful. Would you agree? But you know what, Spin? I'll say this, like, the old way we used to make soundtracks, like all those sounds, all those classic, one shots, like I don't even consider to use them anymore. Very rare that I use them still. So anyway, so there it is. All right. Well, we certainly definitely got a few more minutes out of the stream, but I'll just say it again. I think the purpose of life is to find some purpose in life, and I think the meaning of life is to find some meaning in life. Guys, thank you all again, sincerely. It means a lot to me. If you want to help me grow the stream, that'd be wonderful, because it would be nice to, what I'd really like is if this could generate some revenue, because if that were the case, I, am resolved to take 100% of the money from this stream and hire someone like Spin, pay somebody like Spin to just edit samples, or, help me, edit the stream, or, in other words, whatever money would be generated. I'd happily hire any of you guys to, get involved in everything going on here. So, just a thought. So, and that's something I'm saying publicly. I would not take one single dollar out of any money generated by my streams or by YouTube Live. Now, under, let's say, $35,000 a year, which would be a decent salary, no? Or maybe $50,000 a year or something like that. If we get over that, then I'll take some dollars. But I would never take any money if it meant I could bring somebody into my business and, affect positive change in that person's life. Someone like Spin, or Nick, or Kiwi, or Jasmine, or any of you. So, if you want to do something to help get us towards that, help me promote the stream on all of your various socials. All right, guys, again, I appreciate all of you, and thank you all for coming. And now I'm going to sign off, okay? Take care. Bye-bye. Good night. And by the way, if you're typing your farewells right now and I end the stream, don't worry, I will read the final comments. I just can't reply to them, but